Welcome on this new episode of Let's Talk. I'm super happy to be here today with Jakub Czakon. How are you doing, Jakub?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Thomas.
Thanks for being here on the show. I have many questions, and I say this at every episode. But maybe for the people who might not know you, could you introduce yourself in a few sentences?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm Jakub. Also, friends call me Kuba. Feel free to call me Kuba. I'm a CMO at an LLMs startup, neptune.ai. Some of you may know us for our blog. And I also do dev tool startup marketing advising, and I run a blog at marketer.com. So I think that's it, super quick.
Yeah. And I think so. I'll get back in. I think it could be super interesting to share more of your journey because you have a very interesting one. But before that, I'm always curious to know about the state of the art of people that come on the show. And by that, I mean, what are you most curious about these days? Where is your attention at in the last few months?
Yeah. So I think it's like there are two directions where my head is going. One is actually seeing working implementations of a lot of the things around LLMs and in marketing, in go-to-market, in sales. There's a lot of things happening with automated outreach, email sequences, or just recordings even, with avatars and people doing a lot of this stuff. And I'm sort of, curious to see where we get with, with all the things that AI helps us do, right? And LLMs that help us do. And I want to see if it helps or if it just brings everything to the ground on the front of, us not trusting, emails at all, or videos that we get on the, on LinkedIn at all, or, the blogs we see. And so I'm curious to see where it goes. It could go. I'm always, I always try to be both positive and realistic, right? So, like on the realistic front, we could see internet flooding with so much crap. Can I say crap on the pod? Cool. So we could see that happen, right? Where, where it just gets horrible, right? But I think that's one option. The other option is that creators, individual creators, a lot of folks who before may have not felt comfortable sharing their stuff online, a lot of folks in the dev community and ML community, who are not necessarily native speakers of English language, but, have a ton of valuable things to say, then this could enable many folks to go ahead and create and share their experience, right? So I think this could also be great, right? So on that front, that's myself, like, the connection to the to the marketing side of things. When it comes to AI itself, it's interesting, for me to see if it's only going to be just, more layers, more data, more training, bigger models, or no, and when we actually start seeing that divide, right, with going into like smaller models, and quantization moving. So I'm curious to see where it goes, right? Because I remember when I was doing ML, it was already sort of the discussion of there are those smarter techniques, but maybe we just need bigger models. And then, so for a while it was like smarter techniques. And then, it's sort of like, now it feels like, well, more folks would say we just need more layers, And I'm sort of curious to see where it goes. Is it going to be mainly, energy bound and sort of like, what we can train because of how much energy can we burn and how many GPUs can we have and stuff like that, or not, or we just gonna, actually go in some smarter direction, or both. Yeah.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. I think we'll be able to comment on a lot of this, and I'm super curious because, like I said before, you have a very interesting journey. So I'll ask you in a bit, but you're actually a CMO, but you have a strong ML data scientist background. I would include maybe machine learning engineering and so on. Could you describe in a few key points, like the key moment of your careers, how you went from a chess player, world chess player, to being the CMO at Neptune AI?
Yeah, no, it's that's a great question. So I think my first sort of career was chess, right? I started playing super late for a chess player. I started playing when I was 12. Um, and I got to a really solid level. By the time I was 18, I was the second in Poland under 20, something like that. Um, and went almost to the grandmaster title. I have a national master title, but I had a grandmaster sort of level rating, and I won post championship in blitz games, which was my sort of sweet spot. That was all happening when I was at the university. Um, and yeah, but chess, I went really deep on chess, if you will, and I think it's really cool to do something at a deep level. At least even if it's like one thing that you do in your life, like going deep on something just changes you. I think in many ways where you understand how difficult it is to go from top 1% to top what top 0.5%, and like how much, like, even though you're great, there are so many people who are so much better you can't even comprehend. And there's this thing in chess that like when you look at a move coming from a player, you're playing someone, and that move seems stupid, right? And then you know that this person is 2 or 3 levels higher than you, like they're considerably better. All of a sudden, it may be that you completely misunderstood the move, and the move is great. Whereas if it was that the move was played by someone who is like 2, 3, 4 levels below you, like it's just a blunder, it's just a bad move, right? So it's easy to understand what people are saying or people are doing when they're just like one level above, one level below, or around your level. But if someone is just like sort of 5 levels ahead, then things that they say or do that seem completely stupid, maybe just just showing that you don't understand the game enough to know what it is. And I think it's funny, when you put, and I put 15 years into chess, right? So I put a lot of time into this, and I was good, but still you could feel it when I would see some games of like really top players. At one of my friends was like top 15. Like I don't get it. Like I don't understand those moves. Like to me it seems like a blunder, but I know it's not. I just don't get it, right? So I think that was an interesting thing. And so university, I did 2 degrees. I did theoretical physics and finance and accounting. Very very well connected degrees. um, but what connected them was statistics. So both of my thesis were on statistical modeling. One was on in the finance world, it was valued risk estimation with bootstrap methods, and then on the physics, my thesis was on statistical modeling, or like basically there's like different criteria. I don't know if you know them, because that's an interesting way of comparing models, but like Akaiku criteria and Bayes criterion for comparing models. And it was about sort of figuring out which model of the universe is most likely to be true, right? And based on supernova data, and so that was also statistical, and that's around that time where I got into machine learning and data science. Sort of like trying to understand those things. I was coding all of those things in R and doing a lot of visualizations, and straight from uni, from that I started working. I was actually working for an American company trading. So I was trading in the U.S. market. US stock exchange, but that was I'm in Poland, right? So it was a late day. It started around 2 o'clock every day, right? That's when 8 o'clock hits in the US, right? And so I had this entire morning to myself, and I would just sort of like pursue that machine learning data science direction. And and there and there I just liked it more. And I was better at it too. So uh I don't know how long passed, but I figured maybe I'll just, if I'm doing it in the morning, maybe I'll just like start doing it at a company. Send out, it was early, right? I think it was like 2013, 14, something like that, right? So that's, I sent a CV, and, they kind of got interested in data science, wanted to start something. There was a dev company, just a, software house. And yeah, so I started doing that part-time, and then eventually transitioned to doing it, full time. And that's how I got into data science, and I loved it, like if there's one, sort of theme throughout my career was like, I really get interested in things and then I go, reasonably deep reasonably quickly. And what was amazing about data science was that there are so many angles, so many things to learn. It's very hard to saturate, the hunger for, new ideas, for, the curiosity that I've always had. Right. So that's how I got into data science.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to follow up on, so you get into data science, and how do you end up being CMO at Neptune AI? I think that you've also done some data science competitions, if you can give a few words on that. And then I'm keen to jump into more the edge of, this is something that I really like, is you went so deep, for example, in chess. Well, one thing that I'd like to comment on that is the deeper you get in a subject, the better you can understand and appreciate people who are even deeper than you and like have mastered some concepts, and you can feel how much effort they've put in. And it is also true that it is both humbling and inspiring and motivating to be surrounded by people where you're like, why did you do that? And they're better than you, and you just like don't grasp it, but you're like, okay, why? And it's just so cool to be surrounded by people that just reset your bar for deep and like what an expert means. So commenting on that, back to you on competitions, how you became CMO at your actual company, and then I'd love to ask you more about the edge of AI and marketing.
Sure. Yeah. So I was doing data science for I think it was like 5 or 6 years, something like that, and I got to like a senior data scientist level, and during that time I would first for a software house, and then at another software house I worked at Deep Sense, we would compete in data science competitions, right? And first, it was the medical imaging ones, like the Mikai. We actually won that. I was on a team that won 2 of those competitions. They were that was right at the moment when deep learning was getting in, mainstream. I still remember, coding stuff in Piano and hating it and not understanding what is happening. And then I discovered Keras and I felt like like the smartest person in the room. So we did that. I remember a funny thing there was like one of those competitions was with 3D images of tumors, right? And you had to like do a 3D segmentation of it. And there were techniques, like and algorithms or things like that people would use. We thought, what if we could somehow, use deep learning here? And the trick to the competition was that they did it in a way where there were, I think, 16 images in the training set, like 3D images, and probably 160 in the test set, right? So we had, because they really didn't want anyone to use deep learning, as far as I understood after. But we figured, hey, what if we went into, synthetic data generation, and basically, what if we trained a model on that train? And we did, and we won by by a large margin. We won that competition, and it was like, it was really funny because we used like super basic networks because it was like, very small data set. We tried to make them smaller so that they can actually train and not overtrain, etc. But like we did win that, so that was fun. But then competitions and how they connect to where I'm right now. Basically, I was interested in doing something like cuddling a little bit more, and the opportunity presented itself. We're in that company, Deep Sense AI. I'm saying we as a company, but I wasn't working on it. There were way smarter folks working on it. We created an internal tool for experiment tracking, neptune.ai. Back then, the first name of it was Zeus, right? But then we figured, we'd connect it somehow to deep waters, deep learning, and make it a god of the sea, Neptune. Um, the funny thing is, like, we, it should have been Neptune without an E, I think, and we made it with an E, so everyone thought it was a planet, so we had to stick with it. But that's what it was. But anyway, like, that the product, got created, was created, and then, CTO Piotr, after talking to, his friends at other companies, etc., realized that it's a bigger problem. So we decided to, he decided, hey, let's make it a proper startup. Let's spin it off to a proper VC-backed startup. That's what he did. He asked some of the folks who were on that, on the team at the Deep Sense, me included, if I wanted to join, and so I did. And the idea was that in the first, year, we're just gonna compete in data science competitions like Kaggle, like some open ones. I don't know, Crowd AI was one of the competitions we won as well, during that time. And we would just like, share open source, the solutions, open source, how, talk about how we did it, and hopefully people would, use those solutions, sign up for Neptune. That's how they would find out about the product, right? So at that time, I didn't know too much about marketing, but that was sort of like the plan, and that's how we got some initial traction. Yeah, but then, we hired a proper marketing team. We fired a proper marketing team. We hired a consultancy agency. We fired, we stopped working with that agency. It was just like, it didn't seem to work. We didn't seem to understand how to make it work within the realms of, you're marketing to developers, you're marketing to, it's not really, it doesn't really feel like marketing. Like, it's like, talk about values and benefits, and then, and then you have, somebody coding something in PyTorch, and they're like, what what are the features? Like, what are you, show me how it works, and show me how to, like, what it does, right? So you have like those discrepancies that now I can verbalize better, but back then I couldn't. But we just saw it wouldn't work, and then, we're hiring a head of marketing. I was sort of like a Dev Rel, community person, the data science community person back then, and we're hiring for head of marketing, and that person, midway through conversation, asked me if, hey, listen, the product, you are the audience that you're going after, right? That you want to use the product. You don't know marketing, but maybe you should learn marketing, and I'll help you by advising, and you run this. And I thought it was interesting because that was another sort of thing that I maybe I could learn and do, and it seemed difficult. It seemed, like smart people could make it work, So, I was up for the challenge. Next day, I went to my CEO, asked him, "Hey, Piotr, I'm going to learn marketing," and it was like, "Yes." And yeah, so that's what I did. And then fast forward, another few years. I think we're Neptune has been on the market for like 5.5 years, something like that, and we managed to be one of the known brands in the MLOps space. Managed to grow the team, create that blog that I mentioned at the beginning that, is one of the most known blogs in the space. We managed to grow to, tens of thousands of users, hundreds of teams using this both in academia and production. So that's where we are. And probably like 2 years back, I figured, I'm going to try and find other folks who are in a similar problem of marketing to developers. And I couldn't find anything. So I figured the easiest way to find people like you is to start sharing your knowledge, sharing your ideas, and then people will agree and disagree with you. And, but that will create conversation and connections. And so that's what we did. That's what I did. And then, very quickly I found that there was like a super small community of like 30 people, a Slack channel of 30 people who were developer marketers. I joined that, and then I, quickly was one of the more active people there, became an admin, and then we started growing that, and now we're at like 1,600 people, with that community, and some of the most known dev tool marketers are in there, and we have that place to talk and work on it. Yeah. Now I also do some advising on that front to, help some of the dev tool founders do marketing to devs, which is, funny thing to do,
Yeah,
horrible thing to do sometimes.
really. That's super interesting. I think you mentioned different topics that I'd like to cover. I think overall, it is very interesting to me how you're always up to the challenge when you have enough curiosity to go deep on a subject. And kind of the takeaways that I get from your story is that when you can combine skills that have enough depth, it doesn't just sum in terms of value, but it multiplies. And so I think what I'm curious about right now is some insights maybe that you have from you joining this community and growing it and being part of the leading team and the leading minds around marketing to developers. So what are your lessons and insights about building a marketing planification for developers? Do you have some maybe ideas, concepts, like if you had to start over, and maybe like some way to measure it and to measure growth? That would be interesting if possible to comment.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to touch on what you said with the stacking of skills, right? I think this is super valuable generally for anyone. I think I mean, I was good at data science, but I don't think I was ever top. And I know people who are top, like top level researchers or just top production people, right? And I was good, but I never felt like I was close to that. But then there are those other skills, like I was always good at public presentations and conference, like sort of like meetup talks, stuff like that. I liked it. I could do it. I could do presentations. That probably comes from me, going to music school when I was a kid, and you had to go and basically had those shows, right? Like where, an exam was always a show. And I remember like that was stressful. Obviously I saw some, I remember the first one I went to, there was this kid that sat in the first row that vomited just before their piano ratchet over whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But that basically over time, like you learn how to better deal with this stage fears and like you can talk better. So then you connect that, and all of a sudden it was easier maybe for me to do those presentations to devs and meetups and conferences. And then when it comes to thinking about marketing, I think physics helps a lot. Actually, funny enough, where like you try to understand concepts behind things, right? Because in machine learning, a lot of things can be clean, like at least the math behind it is clean. A lot of things are clean in marketing, a lot of things are not clean. Like you have signals that help you in making directional decisions, but it's not it's not clean, right? And then chess also helps because you can think through game theory. Like what if you don't see what decision you should make? Like you don't see any clear decision, right? So I like this concept of when that happens, and that often happens in chess, where you don't see how to win, right? But you still want to play. So what do you do? And then one of the concepts is this concept of what's your weakest piece. So you look at your position and you figure out which piece is the weakest, and you improve it, right? It's not to win right away. You just improve your position, so that maybe once you keep improving those weakest pieces, after a while, the path to victory will be clear. Right now it's not, but you can keep improving that position, keep improving those different, maybe, like making the parallel marketing different, marketing assets different, parts of the stack, like that, this, improving this thing, there's no way it will hurt us. It can help us. So then, what can we do, etc. Right. And so thinking through that through when the solution is not clear. And then finally, connecting to investments, you have like, the diversification of portfolio, and you have one channel that is working, maybe you want to diversify it. What how do you do it? Like maybe how do you make bets? Some of those bets are experimental. Some of those bets are more, sort of like a lower risk, things, right? So I think, it really helps, and thinking through this lens is really valuable. But but now coming back to the initial thing, like what are those learnings, in the, in marketing to devs? I think there I feel like one that over time became, super clear to me, especially like, a lot of the open source projects, is like, you should sell, sell to people with money. You should sell to enterprises, but you should get the community to love and adopt you. And what I mean by that is like, oftentimes you think about, like you have a product that you want to sell, right? So, you want to get to people who can use it and who can pay for it, and then you want to get them to do it, and and then hopefully they will start paying, etc. Now, in Dev, what happens is that there are very few examples of companies who manage to sell to the individual developer. Very few. Like you have JetBrains, and pretty much that's it. Maybe Replit, I think this is maybe, but like you have very few, right? And yet companies try, right? And yet, like, but you have many failure examples when people try to, right? So, but anyway, like so selling to the individual developer is hard. The money is at the team level, at the enterprise level, right? So the team level, like the manager is paying for it, the team is happy, they're more productive, you can pay it. There are certain limits to it. Enterprise, there are multiple teams, there's compliance, etc. But what basically that portrays, especially in the open source project, is that the users are not the buyers, right? And you need to, you need to make sure that the devs adopt you, that the devs, they see value, they like the product, they see how it helps them, etc. And then there is a different group that will be paying, and they'll conflate the two. And especially in open source, it's easy to do, where all of a sudden you start maybe taking, you want to think about maybe taking some features away so that you can monetize it. And then your community starts to hate you, right? And then you get less of that viral effect of people just sharing that this product, this tool is great, I like it, I use it, etc. So basically your marketing, your viral marketing that you get from, from a successful open source product dies off, right? And so by trying to monetize to the wrong group, you basically killed the entire, entire business, because you try to monetize the dev, which is very hard to do. And it's actually not smart to do. I don't think, right? So this concept of understanding that you want people to, you want your, the people, the users, the devs using open source, especially those who use it for hobby projects, for, just smaller projects. You want them to use it, almost on the weekend, during the weekend, you want them to play out on their, nights and weekends projects. And then you want them to bring it to the company on Monday, like that's the goal. But the person who's footing the bill is not the dev, and so like that's important. And what comes from this is basically this realization of, okay, so then how do you market to this group, right? Because you have this concept of marketing saying that you should always speak about value and benefits. People don't care about the drill. They care about the 4-inch hole, right? I don't know if you're familiar with this concept, but it's like that this concept comes from the Jobs to be done book, where if I want to haul, then I don't care about a drill. I mean, but here's the realization. What if you actually freaking care about that drill, because you're using that drill every day, right? And all of a sudden that little, bad default on a particular, function, makes you want to switch the product, or like all of a sudden, like you really care about the technical docs for that thing. You really care about the examples for it. You really care about how does it, work with other tools. You do care about that drill, right? And I think that's important with devs. Like they do care about that drill, right? And so you want to explain, in simple terms, what the product does. You want to enable people to build. You want to give them a lot of those, tutorials, documentation, videos, all the stuff, so that they can build with it. Give them inspiration, perhaps, template gallery, stuff like that. But you don't want to persuade them. One thing you don't want to do with devs, especially as a marketer, is, like I'm going to come to you and say, hey, use Neptune, like, what are you using? Let me convince you that it's the wrong choice. Like, it never worked. I've never seen it work, right? But what you can do is like, you can explain, what are the options? What are the options? How you can work with it here, try it out yourself, see that it works. And, and if you have questions, then we're here, right? But like this sort of switch from persuasion to enablement, education, and inspiration is sort of like a big switch. Once you understand that you're basically marketing to a builder, you're not marketing to an economic decision maker, who's like, what's the time to market? What's the, I don't know, what's the ROI on this? Like, I've, in my career as a data scientist, I don't think I've ever heard any data scientist talk about ROI of using a tool. It's like that. It's not, like, I don't care. And it's funny because like, I think devs almost have almost reversed, when there's almost reversed relationship with money and their time, as in, yes, you want to save time because it's painful. Like if it's, if you're running let's say a model training script or something like that, and it's just like loads and, it just starts, for 5 minutes, or like a CI/CD job, it starts for like, it's painful, right? You don't want to wait because it's a cognitive load. It breaks your flow. Those are the problems, right? But how many times have you seen a situation where, like I can do a one-off job or I can automate it, right? Even though it's a one-off job, I'm going to work for a week on automating this, right? And how is that for ROI? It's not. I'm a builder. I just got excited about automating this and building this. I kind of want to build with this and see, but where's the ROI in this? There is no. There is some ROI for you and your career over time because you want to understand what's out there, how to use it, right? Like, so you care about that, right? That's why you care about education. You care about being up to date with what is out there, like understanding those products well. But it's not about how much money you save for your employer. It's not. It's not. You care way more about how productive you are with your work, how enjoyable it is, etc., etc. So I think the switch from persuasion to education is a big thing. And the third thing I'd say is community. An aspect of community and how that helps with social proof and and people devs ideally want to buy, so to speak, from other devs, right? You want to hear from your two friends talking about a framework, that this is a framework you should try, and then you try it. That's how you want to discover, right? Like that's the ideal way of discovering, because like then you can ask them questions in your language. You don't talk about streamlining, PyTorch operationalization. What you talk about is, it's like, hey, how do we just like, I don't know, deploy on Bento, PyTorch models and something. I don't know, like you use completely different language with completely different focus and questions and context, right? And so I think, if you can tap into that and be a part of the community, or some is build community yourself, that's a huge thing to do. And that's why you have so many Dev Rels, in DevTools, working that community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for the 3 points. And it makes, so here are some takeaways that I really like about this. The first one being, it's not about persuasion, and really a tool that is going to be implemented will come from maybe an individual that had a weekend project and just used that tool because he saw some people commenting on LinkedIn, and so he went from there. Like this can only happen from community and education and good content. You mentioned different points. I'd like to come back on metrics, but so from my understanding, with this kind of products, the most important part is how the free product that the developer will use, like how good is it, and then you would have like how good are our Dev Rels and how clean and clear are the ideas, the concepts, so that everyone gets on board. And then how good are our tutorials when people decide to go and try your product, or like use it in a project, because then either managers or people in the team will say, oh, I'd like to use that for this thing because I really like it and I tried it and it works great and a lot of people are talking about it. This is state of the art, blah, blah, blah. And so this would be to me like the third step. And then you would be able, so those are hard things to measure, like the impact of a post on LinkedIn with a clear concept. You can measure views on the tutorial, but maybe just one post with one comment converted a lot of people who used it in a project, and maybe 3 months later, new B2B businesses are created due to that. But this is very hard to infer. So how do you go about metrics in general? What kind of metrics do you use as a CMO? If that's a question I can ask. And do you have ways around approaching education and content? Do you have comments, insights?
Yeah, for sure. So on the measurement front, I think, and you mentioned something that is, it's good. Like, how do you measure, the performance of a LinkedIn post, right? Of a single LinkedIn post. And I tell you, you don't, like the companies try and do it, and they push for that was the direct impact of that post. But most of the time, it's not about a post. It's about your presence in that channel over time. So you can measure programs, you can measure channels, but when you talk about those single posts, it's harder and it's counterproductive if you do it wrong. So what do I mean by that? Like, when measuring marketing, I think there are like two levels, right? Like, one level is thinking about the program, ROI of the program, and how program is valuable. Program would be, let's say a Dev Rel posting on LinkedIn or Twitter, right? Program would be a series of YouTube videos. Program would be running ads on those YouTube videos. Program would be doing a podcast, creating a blog, that is focused on a particular problem set, writing tutorials about that problem set, not necessarily with your product in it, but perhaps as well, right? So those would be different programs, right? Different ways of attracting people to your circles, if you will, right? So the programs should connect to those higher level metrics, right? And those core metrics for marketing, like right now, it seems that this core, the most commonly praised metric is basically qualified pipeline, right? Or pipeline. So that's basically, when people actually, when the team actually comes up and says that they want to buy it perhaps, or, they want to consider you, like they talk to someone, they talk to sales, they get qualified that they are actually in the pipeline to buy, like there's a big chance of them buying, right? Reasonable chance, maybe, some companies actually try to formulate, do it in more formulaic way where, whatever stage in your sales process that closes at 25% or more is called, the pipeline, or, that's the stage, right? Whether that's the first call, the second call, whatever call it, like this is the one, right? 25%. Anyway, it's somewhere when it's connected to that, right? And you want to measure the investment in programs versus that. How many opportunities does it create? How much pipeline? Because pipeline is basically opportunity, number of those opportunities times the money, the average money that you can get from that opportunity, right? That'll be pipeline. And you want to measure those programs versus that, right? So like the blog, like how much does blog contribute to that? How much does your Twitter contribute to that? How much does your podcast contribute to that? And then you have like this, let's say take that LinkedIn example, right? But how much does a particular, how do you measure then, and how do you measure a particular post, right? So you have the second layer of metrics, and those are metrics that help you optimize the channel, right? Those are signal metrics that help you figure out if you're going in the right direction. I mean, the more engagement you get, maybe you try to create better content that gets more engagement, right? But you also want to get maybe more, so you gotta get more and more engagement, and that's how you optimize it. But over time, you can see that perhaps the engagement doesn't convert to pipeline. Right? Like you see that you were posting memes on LinkedIn, right? And then you see that out of those memes, not, you got a lot of engagement, but nobody ever converted to pipeline, right? So then you see that perhaps, the way you do it, things there is not really connecting, right? But I'd still, try to look at the engagement stuff within the channel that helps you optimize the channel, but ultimately measure it on that pipeline. Now, how do you attribute the program to pipeline, right? How do you do that attribution? Like, there are a few different ways. One that is simple but gives you a lot of insights, has its problem, but gives you a lot of insights, is basically self-reported attribution, right? So that's when, when you sign up for the product, there's a open box to ask you, hey, how did you find out about us, right? You have a demo form, right, or like contact us form, and you put that field in there as well, and you get information. Like people tell you how do they find you. The other way is like and then from that you leave it open form, or you make it things to click. There are different benefits and downsides to both. But overall, that's how you can connect it. The other one is you look depending on the campaign or sort of like the channel. You can connect it through last click or things like that. And finally, the method that is now sort of growing. And by the way, I really like the self-reported attribution. I really like it. I think it has its problem, but it has this nice spot of being simple, yet yet valuable method, right? But the method that I really like is this marketing mix modeling. It's growing in popularity now. More folks talk about it. So that really connects to data science, because basically what I want to do is I want to see if basically the growth in impressions in a particular channel, does it contribute to that pipeline or other metric that I think it can contribute to. Right. And then you can take into account the sales cycle, how long does it typically take from impressions here to that. And then, maybe you have some like movements when it comes to the time, to the periods. But in its simplest forms is I'm just going to look at impressions I got on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on the blog, on the podcast, whatever, like how, on the ads, at the conference we went to, right? I'm going to have those, by month. Right. And then I'm going to have the opportunities created by month. And then I just want to run a regression on it and see contribution to it and the baseline. So the baseline would be like, what would happen if none of those activities, like we did nothing, right? Or, and because you're always going to have a baseline for because that's basically the strength of your brand and the demand for the products of that category. And then, but then you do things and they should correlate, and you should see that, hey, that actually getting those engagements on LinkedIn, even though there was like no clicks to the website, for some reason they convert to more opportunities. And I remember we had that I saw that example in real life where we saw we're running ads somewhere, and then we would see no clicks, right? But that when we turned it off for a particular region, we saw the drop in signups for that region, right? And so what happens, like actually when you double click on it, you can see that, now that I think about it, it's fairly obvious, but like most of the time when devs, they see ads, they don't click on them, they just type in Google, right? So you have and then, if you use standard attribution methods, what you're going to see is it's going to tell you it's Google Direct or it's Google, right? So you're going to see SEO is working. No, it's not. You just you ran ads and people saw it, and then they went to Google and typed it because they didn't want to click your freaking app. That's what happened, but like, your attribution, Google will tell you that this comes from people Googling. And it does, but it's not why they Googled, So that's how you can, correlate those things and figure out what gives you the lift, right? And see those improvements. Because sometimes those things will be very, conflated, combined. It's going to be hard to detach it. And obviously you can run different, other models on it, and there are adjustments to it, etc. And you want to make sure that the number that you have, the opportunities, can be affected by the impressions in that particular month, right? Because if that's not true, then you have to move things around or take something like maybe high intent visitors. So, you want to see if it correlates with visitors to high intent pages like pricing or contact us, even if they didn't actually put the contact in there. It's a signal of the future demand, right? That in turn correlates with the opportunity that may happen 3 months later. But you see that, that if you drive more interest, then that will in turn correlate with that money. So we have to do some sort of, connections between those different things. And at the end of the day, what you're going to get is you're going to get direction, not attribution. And that's the core thing. I really liked it. Piyush from Paramore, he's talking on a lot of podcasts about it, is basically this concept of incrementality versus attribution, that you actually want incrementality, you don't want attribution. And and attribution is when your boss comes and says, hey, how many leads did we get from that LinkedIn post with that stupid cat meme, right? That's attribution, right? Incrementality is like, can we connect that? And incrementality is like, did we see a lift? Like, did that campaign, program, whatever, did it lift the numbers, and by how much? And that's more important when you think about it, because it's like, at the end of the day, in marketing, you want to allocate your resources so that you get the most out of it, right? The most of those business metrics out of it, right? It's sort of like optimization problem. And so if you are spending your time or money in one channel that is not producing opportunities, and the other one that is producing opportunities, you're not spending enough, you're leaving money on the table, right? So what you want to do is you want to reallocate, right? And the only way to really be able to reallocate is understand, if I moved this much money from here to here, would it move it? And while you cannot get that level of like, typically, I mean, super big companies, you with data science teams working on those problems, like, you can get better incrementality numbers and more better estimates. But if you're at the startup, like, even understanding the direction will help you. Understanding the direction that, hey, this is what we should be doing, and for now, let's just like, try and double our effort in here, try and do more, try and grow this channel. Because like, for the longest time, you may just have one channel that works and it's fine. You can really grow it. And then, so I think that's on that measurement front, that we won. You had one more question, but maybe there's something on the measurement, that you want to double click on.
Yes, I think you covered kind of all my doubts regarding measuring, and I think I kind of have a vision on what I wanted to learn. I really like the different ways you measure and how you approach optimizing for the ratio that will lift the business forward the most. And that's very cool to me, because you don't have to get it right. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to calculate this ratio and just iterate with clean experimentations to measure overall how are we doing, and how about reducing this strategy and putting it on the other one, and how does that affect this overall ratio on different time periods. And I really like these different ideas. I also really like how you go with ads for brand awareness, and you can have Dev Rels doing the in-depth work to give credibility to the brand, and then you just measure people looking out for your product or listening your videos. Or I'm sure that you can find ways to like combine incremental with specific posts. Yes, sorry.
I think on that front, it's also important to understand that I mean, on the marketing front, you typically focus on the acquisition part of things, right? Where I think Dev Rel, like the healthiest Dev Rel organizations, they are measured on active users, right? So you want to enable, like, that's you want to measure active users, or sometimes you may be measured on like time to first API call, right? Like you have this like stuff where there's this assumption that if I can get the developer to that first, I don't know, like first API call, or first actual production API call faster, than I've done my enablement job better, right? So you have those different layers, and then you obviously have the monetization and stuff like that. So like there are those things, and then the second layer is this part of basically this brand awareness versus education versus trust building, and I think it's like sometimes again because things are pretty much every brand awareness, every campaign would help with everything, right? There are some things that you can do specifically for trust, for example, right? Like, for example, for trust, if I whenever I see somebody sharing something about my product positive on Twitter or LinkedIn, I screenshot it and I run ads on it. This is a type of a campaign that will play specifically to trust building, right? So it's not about brand awareness. I mean, it helps a little bit, right? But it's specifically about building trust among potentially people who are already, exploring the product, right? Like you see people exploring, and you want to serve them, like what other devs are saying, about it, or like case studies or things like that would be examples. So that's the that's how I see it. And I think there are some problems when people mess it up and try to do both things, or don't understand why they do a particular thing, right? Like, for example, if you run sort of product education with an explicit goal of converting to paid, like you can actually make some atrocious posts, I think, where like you make those, if you make Dev Rels to make Dev Rels accountable to a dollar value of or close deals or something, like you can make horrible things, because like then you get a person who is interested in educating the community, helping people be successful, and you make them think about closing the deal, and then they do stuff like the post was, like the first version of the post was great, but then they started thinking about conversion and they put, sign up, buy now everywhere. They hated it, but they felt they had to do it. Or, like, you make people just like incentivize people in a bad way, and then you're going to get bad outcomes from it. I think that's a lot of problems come from this. And obviously you need all of them, all of those parts. But if you understand it that, like first you want this adoption of users, typically free users. You want that adoption. If you don't have that, you have nothing. But once you have that, you can start, converting those people, and obviously those and there is a separate motion for that. You can build trust. You can understand how to help them buy, and you understand that it's enterprise buying or the team is buying, not that particular dev. So you treat them differently. You enable them to sell internally rather than sell to them, right? Because like, what dev wants to pick up a phone and do you want to buy? Like, you sign up for a product today. Do you want to buy it? Like, no, I don't want to buy it. Like, why are you calling me? And that those things happen, right? And people do that because like they think that they, that someone signed up for the product, so obviously they're interested, right? But let them use it, let them, and then when they start hitting, signals that give you that, hey, maybe they looked 5 times at your pricing, and they're, they shared it with, a decision level person at that company, and you can get that data through different tools. Maybe this is a signal that they may actually want to buy it, and they may need your help. They may need your help in convincing that manager, right? But once you understand how this funnel works, it's easier to create actions that align with it, and then you're actually converting this, rather than treating it as some other forms of marketing or some other products where it's perhaps different, where the goals of different users are different, and the behavior is different.
I see. Thank you very much. That gives me a lot of perspective value. I have one more question, if that's okay, before the closing round of questions that I'm super curious about. By the way, if you're still here in this episode listening, let us know what you think in the comments. What are the pieces that you most enjoy? And it is a pleasure to have you with us on this chat. My last question is, I'm curious about applications of data and AI. So you've yourself built those use cases, and I can think of a lot of use cases regarding sales, marketing, like for example, lead scoring. And I know which people in the sales process might be most likely to convert right now. And so maybe the sales team can call them. Or for example, I don't know, like things like putting a chatbot that have a custom way of onboarding new users, or measuring different things, even though you just specify that we should be more incremental. But I'm super curious to see about how much of use cases do you see in marketing, like in terms of building your own tools to like enhance your decision making. And following up on that, do you think that marketing departments are the departments that needs the most tools, or data AI, or like I don't know, analytical platform with dashboards and so on? Or do you believe that those needs are more on an operational level, financial level, or like how do you see the importance of data and AI built in based on the different departments that a tech company can have?
That's a very good question. And I think in decision making, I'll give you 2 examples, 2 quick examples from what we do at Neptune. So one is I talked about that self-report attribution, right? Like you put, like it's how did you find out about us? You put in something, right? Like we make it open form, You could put, you could put those options, but if you put options, then you will get one of the options. But the problem with that is, what if people come from a channel you've never heard about, you never thought of people coming from that place, and they do, and then they're in the sign-up process, so they just click the top one. Most of the people do, that's why you should randomize it, etc. But so what do you, so you leave it open. You leave it open, then you get a lot of garbage, and you get a lot of, misclicks, etc., etc. Right? So what we did is sit down from our team, we created a model that would basically classify, that input into category and subcategory. So category being, let's say, socials, LinkedIn, or ads, YouTube, right? Like you'd have stuff like that, right? And then you have obviously other category, and then you can check other, and you see that, hey, this is, net new channel I'd never heard of, right? And by doing that, you get sort of the best of both worlds, so to speak, obviously, especially early when you want to figure out where people are coming from, this is super valuable. Later, when there are basically just these channels, and let people just choose it, and fine, that's something where you're not gonna where maybe you want to get people to click one of the options. But that's an interesting one. Second one, I not too long ago I worked on this one is you want to design the activation metric, right? So activation metric is basically figure out how do you know that somebody got activated in the product, got enough value from the product that they're gonna keep using it. And so you think about it in a way where you try to figure out what's the how do you know that somebody will keep using it? I mean, there's this concept of retention, right? So you look at sort of the retention curve, and you find a spot where it flattens, and then you want to correlate actions that happen early in the journey with those with that moment, let's say 60, 90, 180-day retention, whatever it is in your case, right? And so through that, you can figure out, you can list out all the actions that people could do in the first, 3, 7, 15 days, right? And then you can run a model on it, and that's what he did. As a data scientist in marketing, I just ran a random forest, to figure out which of these random forests, because then I don't have to tweak anything. I like that about random forests a lot, it just, and you just get signals, right? So I did that, and I get, I get signals into which of those features that people use or those actions that people did correlate with that 60, 90-day retention. Then you can construct a metric for, so how do I want to measure activation in the first time, right? And those first moments. And then as a growth person, as a person working on adoption, you can figure out, okay, so what do we do to get people to do this action or that action? Because we know we have signals that they correlate. And then obviously you have to run tests to figure out if it's just correlation or it's causation, right? But anyway, you have those things in there. And now to your question of is marketing department good for AI? Is AI useful in marketing? I think it's extremely useful, but it's extremely useful when used correctly. I'd say I think there's a lot of points for making this the aiding in summarization use cases, right? Help me, draft something, help me ideate, help me create, the summary of a particular, interview that we had just today. And then I'm going to tweak it and then convert. So I think a lot of the help when it comes to aiding is fantastic. You can use it for helping you create things. Now the generation is where I think is problematic, and I don't really see anyone really doing it well, or I don't think it has any chance of being successful just yet, pure generation, right? Combining information, and cleaning it up and preparing it and saving you time and automating the boring tasks. Yes, 100%. 100% you can do that, and for better or worse, I think it's to stay with us. But then you have the generation and the actual content of this, the core of it, that should not be automated. Because then it's you're just putting garbage in the world. If AI already knows something, right? What business do you have in putting it out there? How much value are you adding by extracting something that is already in ChatGPT and putting it as a LinkedIn post. Like, how much value is it? Like truly, when you think about it, like obviously there's a lot of value if, me and you, we have a conversation, it's a net new conversation, right? Like people maybe didn't talk about it, right? And then we summarize it, right? And we create a draft of a post, and then you tweak it to your style with AI, and then you make sure that it actually conveys what you want it to convey, saved you 10x time, right? And but this is actually net new information. Whereas if you could have just said, hey, create me a post, what would a CMO who also was a data scientist, what would they say, or marketing measurement? Like, and perhaps it would be the same thing. Maybe, maybe I'm just not saying anything that new, and, just that. But then it means that this content is not really going to be, sort of sustainable and defensible because it's not new. Like, it's already been said. So that's fine. I think we should be saying new things, talking, marketing should be about those, sharing those new things, sharing experiences of people doing things on the ground, not about, just summarizing top 10 results of Google into another listicle. That's not what it should be about.
I see. Yeah, that's of a lot of value. I can really see different use cases in the marketing department, but also the mindset to approach automation and use cases, and we can really see how building models can impact marketing. Like, not only, okay, I'm just going to use Google Analytics and my tools. No, we can do fun things and data science problems that have a lot of value and can do better educated decisions. But the overall, I think there are tools, but I read it. Awesome. So closing round of questions. It will be just two simple questions. The first of all, and before that, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It has been a pleasure, Jacob, to learn from you, and had an amazing time. So the first one is, where can people learn more about you or Neptune.ai?
Yeah, so for Neptune, go to neptune.ai. You can find us also on LinkedIn. We're active there. You can find our podcast on Spotify or other places. We talk about ML platforms. At least that was the last season. I'm not going to tell you what the new season is going to be about. We're still, ideating, but you can find us there. And then for just to mention, we started building YouTube channel a bit more, sharing more stuff in there. So do check it out. Cameron from my team will be super happy, to hear your thoughts on that. And then for me, you go to you can find me on markuper.com. That's where I put a lot of the content, my content around this marketing to developers and dev to go to market. Also a newsletter at Newslab. You can find it there as well. So maybe just go there and click newsletter and you find it. And then if you are interested in that community I mentioned, you can go to marketing2.dev, or still go to my website and click. The links are all over the place. Cool.
Awesome. We'll put everything in the comments on the YouTube and the streaming platforms. Amazing. And last question. Would you have a message for the Listoc AI community? And that could be a personal, professional, something we discussed in this episode or not.
Yeah. So I think the main message from me would be to think, what are you solving? I think it's very easy when you're on the builder front, and I've been on the camp a lot, and it takes sort of conscious thinking not to be in that front. Is basically thinking, what are you solving, and then looking for for solutions, right? So understanding the problem, falling in love with the problem, and then solving that problem, rather than falling in love with the solution, looking for the problem. I think it's very easy for technical folks. I know it is super easy for me to get in love with the solution, and then you're looking for problems, and it's a recipe for disaster most of the time, unless you get super lucky. Whereas the other way, starting with the problem and thinking how you can solve it, sometimes surprisingly simple solutions solve it really well. And when you understand the problem, you understand the metrics of it, you understand the end user of that problem, etc., it's just so much easier to build a good solution that sometimes involves, heavy ML and the newest models and the latest tools. And Soundness is like extremely simple. And so start with the problem and then figure out the solution, not the other way around. So yeah, if there's anything, that's it.
Amazing. That's a great tips. And thanks for the reminder. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. Super happy to spend this time with you, Jacob. I had an amazing time, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have an amazing day, Jacob.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you, Thomas. See you.